You are no longer outside in the cold. You are no longer at the gates begging to be let in. You are inside council. But what does that mean? Does the city really work for you, or is it only for insiders? We're going to find out. Today, the Bellville Velodrome. Is the city of Cape Town ballooning the cost of repair to sell the site to developers? What's behind their agenda? Why are they having secret confidential meetings called at the last minute? Councillor Wesley Neumann tells us more. Speaking of developers, we talk to Suzette Little and Jonathan Cupido about housing. The city of Cape Town is disposing so much property. What's behind this? And why do they think they can dispose of the people who live inside the houses? This and much more as we take you inside council. My name is Roscoe Palm and we are here at Cape Conscious Media Studios. Important to note that Cape Conscious Media is politically unaffiliated and is concerned with community projects and youth upliftment. So, with me, I've got Councillor, formerly Principal, Wesley Neumann with me. It's nice to sit down with you and have a public conversation with you.
Yeah, finally, Roscoe. I think you've been struggling to get me here for 2 years. But now with the councillor's title, I have some political freedom to speak my mind. Previously, I was gagged by the courts and court orders. So hopefully, we'll see. It might be a very interesting conversation.
I think it's definitely going to be an interesting conversation. Suzette Little, what have you been doing today?
We've just come from Hanover Park and we've been assisting the community out in Hanover Park in our public housing sector. We also have sites out in Ocean View at the moment. We've got one in Mannenberg. It's called a hot desk because opposition councillors are not given offices. We do have an office in Wales Street, but we don't get allowed to have offices in the community. So we've decided that we are going to go to the community and we're going to help because nobody else is helping. And we're not talking the help, we're not talking TikTok help, we're not talking media help. We are talking and sitting down with people that have had no water for 2 years. We are sitting and talking to people that have got municipal bills of 150,000 rand and nobody's taken the time to assist them. We get messages from community that says, and although the city is boasting how they assist the poor with the indigent grant, but when you speak to the community, you get a different story. Communities are told that they don't get to apply for an indigent grant for water because they live in rental stock. So it's very interesting on the ground. And if you compare the wonderful, glossy, wonderful media and you listen to the people, which is what we're supposed to be doing as councillors, listen to the people, you get a very different story. So that's what we've been doing.
When you say what we've been doing, you mean your party and you also mean Jonathan Cupido?
Well, all our councillors and Jonathan, yes, and we've got a number of our councillors that's doing it. We've got 9 councillors and all 9 councillors are out there assisting.
I'm just trying to bring Jonathan Cupido on camera and into the mix. How are you doing?
Hi, Roscoe. Can't complain, man. Doing well. Always good. And always good watching you on your show. Well, missed it for a while, but I understand. It's your councillor now.
That was a secret. Yeah. You weren't supposed to tell anybody about that.
But nonetheless, it's good being here. Doing well. And to continue with what Suzette said, yes, it's always good being in the ground. It's always good being able to be amongst the people and to understand what the people are going through. We had instances where councillors even go as far as saying that you don't belong in our wards. Now, first and foremost, I don't understand the term PR councillor, what it means, and that we serve the entire city of Cape Town. That's number one. And then number two, if I get into a ward and people are calling for my assistance, it simply means that the ward councillor is not working.
Exactly.
And that's the problem that we're sitting with. Across the city of Cape Town, we have ward councillors in 116 wards. And I call them ATM councillors because they only know where the ATM sits on the 27th, but I don't know where the residence is throughout the month when the residents need them.
Yeah, it's easy to hide when you're in the ruling party. And you are also on the Safety and Security Portfolio Committee, and the first thing I want to deal with concerns your committee, the Fire and Rescue Services. There was a very interesting video that I think we're going to that came out the other day when I asked, I wrote a piece about, I don't think that the city is capacitated for the fire season. We have the best equipment, but we don't have the ability to run these amazing toys bought by the city. And in response to my piece, there was a really weird video that came from the fire chief, Clinton Manuel. I think we can have a look at that one and you can judge for yourself.
Hi, good day, Cape Town. My name is Clinton Manuel, Chief Officer of CDF Cape Town Fire and Rescue Service. You might have seen the recent misinformation about our fire service, stating we are inadequately resourced, we are riding on old, outdated equipment.
I never said outdated.
I just want to correct that misinformation. As Chief Officer, I'm extremely proud of this fire service. In South Africa, we are known to be the best resource, the best equipped, the best staffed fire service that one can find in any of our provinces in South Africa. We have 32 fire stations. Each of those fire stations are open daily, which means we've got 32 major pumpers ready to respond to any incident in our city.
Wow.
So community, rest assured, this fire service, we are functioning. We are more than functioning. We've got specialized vehicles like the one I'm standing next to. We've also got state-of-the-art equipment, and we are ready to respond and assist in any emergency. And that is just to correct all misinformation being broadcast about this fire service.
And there they go. One of the vehicles that was on run that day. Now, I never said that they're riding on old, outdated equipment. I acknowledge that we have the best equipment, or some of the best equipment. The problem is that there are not many of these things on run. We have one ladder truck that is on run every day. Of the 4 ladder trucks that are available in the station. After that video was made about the Cape Town Fire and Rescue Service being, as you heard the fire chief say, more than equipped, a big gas fire broke out in the docks. There was no hazmat or hazardous material unit available. They were trying to find drivers. Almost an hour later, they sent officers from the academy to pick up vehicles in Bellville and respond in peak hour traffic to get to the dockyard. The request was at 2 o'clock. It took 40 minutes to find drivers and technicians, and then it took another 40 minutes to drive into town. Then after that, they only had one water tanker to respond to 100 houses that burnt down in Vrygrond. So the issue is not about that we don't have the equipment, it's what is on run day to day. There's this thing called the daily strength sheet that is issued to the various to the firehouses. From that, you can see what is on run, where it's on run. Since that article, they've moved the ladder truck from being on run in Bellville to being on run in Cape Town. But what happens if there's a fire in Strand CBD? Again, they're facing that same problem in reverse. I want our fire department to be capacitated, capable, and the excuse and where they say that at least we're not Joburg should never be the standard to what we are aspiring to for service delivery in Cape Town. So, bearing in mind that all these firefighters are leaving to various opportunities, even now at the end of November, 10 firefighters are leaving, 4 are going into early retirement. Where are these new recruits coming from? In the past, they've had recruiting days where hundreds of candidates were put through the rigors of testing, training, and one by one they were eliminated until there were only a handful left. They were promised these jobs, or rather the expectation was made, or rather they had expectations that they were going to be employed by the Fire and Rescue Department. And at the last moment, these plans were mysteriously cancelled by the City of Cape Town. With the drain of firefighters going to other places like Dubai or heading to early retirement, it's true, we train our people really well, but what are the push factors? Why are our firefighters being pushed out? And are we really ready for fire season? Just today, we got I got this information. House alight, per armed response on scene. From fire control, no rescue vehicle available in the city for dispatch. Now, the kind of fire equipment and vehicles that are available to the city, the kind of vehicles that are on run, are at times wholly inappropriate. You cannot send a bush tender to tend to a house fire or a structural fire. Those things just simply don't have the capacity, the breathing apparatus, and they are that you cannot rescue people with what is on run. And if there is a major fire, it stretches our resources. The misinformation that comes from this is coming entirely from the city. And I want our firefighters to be capacitated ahead of firefighting season. I don't want hundreds of structures to be burnt down in Vrygrond for lack of availability of personnel or equipment. And that's what I have to say about that. So Clinton Manuel and even J.P. Smith, who issued an extraordinarily long rap about why I'm so wrong about these things. We want the same things. We want our firefighters to be safe, secure, and our city and assets to be protected. That's my rant about that. Since this is your portfolio committee, Jonathan, what do we do in this situation?
Look, Roscoe, I think the first and the place that we need to start is, like you've correctly said, we spend a lot of money on equipment and to make sure that all the necessary equipment is there for the fire rescue guys. The challenge that we're sitting with is the fact that we don't have the amount of staff that's needed to be out on the road, and that's the bigger problem. You have a vacancy, and I know that in your last communication, J.P. Smith came out and he said an actual vacancy. But he misled the public with saying actual, because while they're in the process of identifying and going through, whether it's CVs or whatever process they are following, that vacancies are still vacant. The people has not filled those vacancies. So we're not sitting at the 96 vacancies. We're sitting at 180 odd vacancies within the city, almost 200 vacancies, which result in fire vehicles standing somewhere, but we don't have a driver. We don't have staff to be on that vehicle. And that creates the bigger problem that we are facing within the city. So based on what you're saying, we are tired of a politician coming to stand in front of us and a politician saying to the public, no, in my department, this is what's happening. We're not seeing the ED coming to clear that out. We're not seeing, in this case, Clinton Manuel, as the fire chief, came and he tried to say, so as the equipment. But if you look at the video, he never spoke about the staff. He never pointed out that we've got enough staff. He pointed out equipment to the residents of Cape Town. Yes, all good and well, we have all the equipment, but without the staff, the equipment becomes useless. And that's what we need to address when it comes to the fire and rescue services, specifically over this period that we are going into now. Because we're moving into the festive period. Besides the fact that it's festive, it's also summer. And in our summer period, known to Cape Town, we have a lot of fires across. We've witnessed it over this past period of time. And when we looked at the amount of fires that happened, the staff that's there is overworked. It's evidently clear that they are overworked, because it's the same staff that has to rush across the city to go and try and kill a fire. And that is, from my point of view, that's where we really need to address this thing and make sure that the residents of Cape Town know that the process of getting the staff there is our challenge. It's a delay in that, and we need the city of Cape Town, specifically the officials, to come and explain to us as to why they are delaying in this process.
We've been doing oversight visits, and there are 32 fire stations. We have to conduct oversight visits to all of those fire stations. What we found so far is very willing, but very firefighters, fire and rescue staff who want to come forward, but they are afraid of retribution. We've also found things like asbestos roofs that must still be replaced and things like that. So our people, if we look after our people as well as we look after our equipment, we're on our way to have a world-class firefighting service that is befitting a caring city. So, rant done. Let's talk about the velodrome. The Bellville Velodrome. And I don't think there's, I have very limited knowledge about the history of council, but I would wager that nobody has caused such chaos, so quickly as Councillor Wesley Neumann inquiring about the Bellville Velodrome. So let's start off by talking about why the Bellville Velodrome is important, what it represents, and why you have chosen to tackle this issue in your portfolio committee.
Yeah, Roscoe, I think the Bellville Velodrome has been a struggle that has been going on for some time. It's not something recent. I just want to rectify you on that. The reason why I took this struggle on, it's part of my portfolio, part of my oversight. And then also, it's also part of a bigger social movement where sport is a vehicle for social justice and social change. And that can only happen if there are facilities for our children, for our athletes, and there's access to facilities. So it translates to social justice. How are you going to change the society? And we have an asset in the velodrome, which is there, a world-class asset. And now we're hearing that the city wants to dispose of this asset. So obviously, the first thing that I ask myself, in whose best interest is this? In whose best interest is this? Is it in the residents' best interest to sell it? And then I ask myself, let's ask the difficult questions. Or is it in the city? And who's the city? And who are they looking after if they should sell this facility?
So what is it used for at the moment? Or rather, what is it a home to and for?
So the velodrome, I'm sure if you're from Cape Town, even if you're not from Cape Town, the velodrome is such an iconic institution in Cape Town that it's being used for many different events. Currently, there's a cycling velodrome, which I'll speak about more as an indoor facility. Adjacent to that, there's an athletics facility. So there's a kind of a precinct of sporting activities in that Bellville area. Now, the velodrome has not only been used for cycling, it has been used for concerts, it has been used for netball, it's been used for gaming, it's been used for many, many other activities. So it's actually a place where people meet. And there's so much to talk about the velodrome. But the one important thing that I want to highlight is that the velodrome, the Bellville Velodrome, the cycling track, is the only one of its kind in the whole of Africa.
In Africa.
You won't find another velodrome like that in the whole of Africa. So here we're blessed as a city to have a world-class facility that's up to international standard, that can host international events. I also am told, while engaging with a cycling fraternity, that people actually come from Germany and they come from all over to use this facility as training camps because our climate is good, the facility is world class, and there's also some economic injection that this facility brings. But now, what does the city want to do? They want to sell the property for development, and they're not talking about replacing this world-class facility. That's just one aspect of why it's so wrong with this Bellville Velodrome and selling of this whole precinct. So where do our cyclists go to? How do we produce future Olympians? How do we get the children off the streets? How do we promote this healthy living lifestyle that's needed, the social cohesion that we all talk about? But in practice, are we doing what we are saying? Are we creating the opportunities for the community, for the residents, for the youth? And again, it comes back to my question, in whose interest is this?
So why does the city want to dispose of this? I'll open this question to whoever. What is the city's agenda to get rid of the Bellville Velodrome?
So like in anything, all that you need to do is ask that question, whose interest is this? Mm-hmm. Surely it cannot be in the residents' interest. Surely it cannot be for that pookie that wants to cycle, that has this dream of going to the Olympics, because they're taking this institution away, this facility away from that person that has hopes, dreams, aspirations, and they're putting nothing back. They're not putting any facility. So who's going to benefit? As people in power, proximity to power, and we need to follow the money. It's a proven thing already. And only afterwards, many years later, there's an expose in the newspaper that comes out. You know what? It was actually linked to so and so and so, and that is why it's been sold off. So I don't see anything different here, except for a few prominent people that's well connected, that's going to benefit from this. Because there's 5 million residents in the city of Cape Town. How's it going to benefit them?
So there was an event that was an athletics event that had to be cancelled the other day.
So let's talk about the athletics facility.
Yes.
So adjacent to the Velodrome, there's an athletics facility. Now, why is this athletics facility so important? What does it mean to the people? And here, it's across cultural lines, it's across racial divide. That is such an iconic venue because it's the only facility in the whole of Cape Town that can accommodate the entire school communities. Now, if you're coming from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 20s, or noughties, whatever they call it, and you were at school, the athletic season and that period from January to March was the most vibrant time of being at school. Everybody looked forward to that period because you're going to go with your school to the athletic stadium. And Bellville is the only stadium in the whole of Cape Town that can accommodate entire school communities. We also have the NDBS, which is big. It's the schools in the Bellville areas, 4 schools that compete, but over and above that, it's the gears that comes with it. So if we take away the Bellville Stadium, what are we replacing with? And I just want to maybe add on to this. This all started as nothing new, like I said. It started in 2007 already when the FIFA World Cup came to South Africa, and obviously it came to Cape Town. There was a stadium called Athlone Stadium. Now, if you from the Cape Flats in the 70s, 80s, 90s, Western Province senior schools, you would know Couscous, Taulele, Athlone Stadium days. It was a vibrant time. They took Athlone Stadium and they converted it into a soccer stadium. So it was only purpose-built for soccer. Previously, it was multi-purpose. Then they also took the old Greenpoint Stadium, which could accommodate 18,000 to 20,000 people, and they converted it into what we have now, the DHL Stadium. And then they reinstituted the athletics track, but to a capacity of 3,800, let's say 4,000 at most. So from an 18,000 to 20,000 facility, they reduced it to 4,000. So what are the implications of that? Can whole schools, if there are 8 competing schools, like we normally have, we all know the A section, B section, C section, and the vibrancy that comes with that. If 8 schools are competing per section, and each school has 1,000 learners on average, 800 to 1,200, 1,300, it simply means that the whole school cannot go because of capacity. Right. So Greenpoint Stadium, although being world-class, certified by World Athletics, or as I see in the statement, IAAF approved, yes, it's nice to have that facility. But does it speak to the masses, the people that actually need to use the facility? It doesn't. It actually limits them, and there's no access to it. Another thing about this so-called world-class stadium at Greenpoint, from my experience, and I've been involved in athletics actively, both at the federation and at schools, the facility is there, but access to the facility is always a problem. I tell you why. If the DHL Stormers play in that precinct, then they shut down all auxiliary facilities in the stadium, because that DHL Stadium, because of disaster management and all risk factors, they say that you can only have one event. So that means the athletics community is sidelined. So they can't. And we now know how often the Stormers play in Cape Town. So athletics, you can't, the other events supersede. The same with soccer. Same with soccer. Don't talk about the Cape Town cycle tour. Comes to town. There's a pre-build-up, and then there's a breakdown, and that's normally like a month, and where they actually how can I say, store the cycling bikes and that in the stadium, the athletic stadium, and the athletes and the athletics community cannot use that facility. Then we had something like the E-Grand Prix that was here. And for months, the build-up, the athletics community couldn't use it. So, yes, it's a nice facility, and they're posturing about it. But access to the facility is a huge problem.
What about the other stadiums that are around the Cape Flats, Vygiskraal and other stadiums?
So, Roscoe, to put it bluntly, the city doesn't work for the people. I tell you why. What do you think about this? Vygiskraal Stadium, 6 months now ago, there was a storm, and the wind blew the roof off. If we go there now, the roof is still laying on the tartan. 6 months and the city didn't do anything about it.
So there's a clear lack of maintenance.
They just don't give a damn. They don't care because it's Vygiskraal. It's there. It's not Greenpoint. But had it been in Greenpoint, it would have been removed overnight. I promise you. But let's go further to not even just the lack of maintenance. What irritates me is that we have a mayor now that's talking about building a temporary roof at the cost of 30 million rand and something that they can put up in 2 to 3 months. At Vygiskraal, we have a roof that's laying on the tartan track, which is a health hazard to the people, to our people, and they didn't even have the decency to remove it. So, who's the city working for? We must be very clear when we analyze what's happening at Bellville. And there's much more to Bellville Stadium than just the facility that they're trying to get rid of. So, coming back to Bellville Stadium, it is my belief that it was institutional neglect. They purposefully did not maintain that stadium. So it got to this point where they now can spin it in the media, saying that it's going to cost 300 million to repair and all of this. But it was supposed to be maintained all along.
That 300 million that they say is what's going to take to repair them, if they just put the bare minimum maintenance in year on year, it wouldn't have reached this point.
It wouldn't have reached this point.
Do you think that they've kind of constructively left this to ruin so that they can institute their agenda for that precinct in Bellville, which would be to dispose of the asset altogether, sell the land to developers, and have like a second CBD there in Bellville?
Absolutely. So this is their strategy with everything. It's not just limited to Bellville Stadium. But this is the strategy. Let's leave it, let's neglect it, and then use this argument to spin. Keeping in mind where the politicians, the decision makers in this case, they don't use the ordinary facilities. They send their children to schools that have these facilities. So they're not bothered. They cannot relate to why this facility is important. Because if you go to one of these top schools, they have their own pavilion, they have lush grass, their activities continue as is. I was taken aback that just the uncaringness of the city, you know. I don't know how we're going to change this culture. I think we know how. We're going to unfortunately have to vote them out to bring about that change.
Unfortunately,
because whoever's there is supposed to serve the interests of the people, right? And there needs to be people participation in democracy. And even with this whole Bellville Velodrome thing, they're very undemocratic about it. Everything is happening behind closed doors. I give you a classic example. The mayor went on radio. He boastfully said that the Bellville Velodrome is going to be sold and there's so much, and this is why, because it's costing too much, and we're going to upgrade a facility down the road, which is Jan Burger. This was on the radio. I picked up the phone and I asked the chairperson of Bellville Athletics Club, Mr. Brian Records, sir, do you know anything about this? He says, I only heard about it over the radio. I said, didn't they consult you as a stakeholder because their club is a tenant at the velodrome? And he says, no, they didn't. I said, was there any public participation meetings and so forth? He says, no. So they do everything behind the scenes. And here's the penny's in the drop now, Roscoe. I invited all these stakeholders to a very important portfolio committee meeting. At the 11th hour on the day, on the morning of that meeting, the chairperson with the city then classified that meeting. And when I say classified, meaning no outsiders, everything discussed in there cannot be shared. Why would you do something like that if it is in the interest of the residents, if you have total transparency? So something is not adding up. We need to scratch a bit deeper. We need to continuously speak about this. We need to get the stakeholders involved. And then you will find, you know what the problem that they're sitting with now is. There's an online petition that we started and is growing. Within a couple of days, it was, I think, 4,000, 5,000 signatures. So here the residents is actually saying, listen, we don't want you to dispose of this facility. And they're pushing ahead. So much so that they're classifying meetings that the public was supposed to be at.
I want to bring Suzette in at this point, or Jonathan even, like about the public participation. But we first want to talk about how they classify this meeting. Is it normal procedure, Jonathan? You're the whip of the party.
No.
For them, for portfolio committee meetings to all of a sudden be locked down in a veil of secrecy.
No, it's not normal procedure, and I need the public to understand this. This was not a portfolio meeting. It was a portfolio workshop. So there's a difference between a meeting. At a meeting, you make decisions. At a workshop, you normally just discuss what's going to happen. What we've picked up of recent, what the city is doing is, whether it's at sub-council or portfolios, they run these workshops, they have discussions there. They somehow make illegal decisions because it's not a legal constituted meeting, it's just a workshop. And then they come to a portfolio and they bring the item there and they bring the item for noting. So now you no longer have a say on this item because a decision has been made. Where the portfolio is according to law, is where the decision must be made. And then that recommendation from the portfolio needs to go then to council. The system of delegations within the city of Cape Town now says that it must go to the mayor. And then the mayor then must take that, him and his MACO members must then together make a decision and then bring it to council for council to make the decision. Now in this case, they just suddenly closed the meeting, and I agree with Wesley. The meeting was announced. It was about 2 weeks prior it was announced. There was no issues, no nothing. And then on the day when Wesley went and invited these people to come and attend the meeting, including councillors, suddenly the meeting was closed and it was said that nobody, even councillors that's not part of the portfolio, can't attend. We challenged the speaker. We quoted the rules, because one of the most important things is for chairpersons specifically, or where is a chairperson, let me say chairpersons to sub-councils portfolios, it's for them to know their own rules. They need to govern that portfolio, so they need to understand the rule. And the rule is quite clear that a councillor, even if not part of a portfolio, can sit in any meeting of council, providing that that councillor can't contribute or speak in that meeting unless prior arrangements have been made. So in our case, it then allowed us to get into the meeting, and Wesley can confirm that even when I attended the meeting, the chairperson stopped the meeting and wanted to put me out of the meeting. And one of the other councillors had to jump up and say, no, the councillor is correct. I, in fact, threatened the chairperson, and said, I will charge you at the speaker if you dismiss me out of this meeting. But to bring people back to understanding how council is being run, there's rules and regulations that's in place. And the bigger problem that we're sitting with is what we're seeing in council is, as they move along, they just make a decision and that becomes a rule. And it presents a challenge, because that's how we're cutting the public out. Let me just quickly go back to the velodrome. People are asking us what worked in the past. We always look at the past and then we say things work. We didn't have the amount of crime that we're having now, and they're trying to give all these funny, strange reasons to it. But let me say this to the public, for the public to think about this. In the past, all our facilities was available and was functioning. If you go in your own community today, check the facility right next to you and see if it's functioning. Then you'll understand why the Velodrome is important to all of us. I've went to participate in events at the Velodrome. I had sport events. I went to church events. I went to concerts. I was part of the Malay choirs at the Velodrome. There's a number of things that I've done at this facility. And that becomes a history of Cape Town. And now we're saying we want to take this history away. And that's a problem. You can't just eliminate the history of the Cape Flats. Because basically it's us that used to go there. That was the facility where we could go to, where we could enjoy ourselves, where we as the entire family could get together while the son is running or the daughter is running. The parent is up in the pavilion watching. The family is there. There was a unity of family. We've taken this away. We're intending to take this away from the communities, and that if we start off with the Velodrome. Now I want to highlight something. I don't know what the purpose they're going to sell the Velodrome. Let's say they sell the Velodrome. We don't know whether the community is ever going to have access to that facility again. Even if they keep a track in there for cyclists. We don't know if the community is ever going to have access to it. And let me take you to the Cape Town Stadium, the DHL Stadium as we know it now. The stadium is functioning well. The mayor himself has said it is functioning extremely well. But the mayors came to the City Council and said that they are making profit, but it's not coming to council. So somebody else is making profit out of a facility that belongs to the people. Because that's what we need to understand. The Velodrome belongs to the people, as in every other facility within the city of Cape Town belongs to the people, because the residents own this, the ratepayers owns it. It's their money that's supposed to maintain these facilities. And what's happening to the money, God knows, we can't answer. Because when you look at the money, it's there and then suddenly the money is gone. But we're not seeing the development happening so that our children can have an option between gangsterism and some sort of an activity in whatever it is, be it sport, be it soccer, be it cycling, be it running, athletics, whatever opportunity there is, we need to make that opportunities available for our children so that that choice can be there. But the more we're taking away facilities and we're looking at the crowd that the athletes now can't even go and train there because of the condition of it. So where must these people go? These young children now start standing on the corner because they've got nothing to do. And when they have nothing to do, that gives the gang lord or the drug lord or the apparent gang or drug lord the opportunity to now reach out to this young person. And at the end of the day, when we sit here as residents, as parents, and we look back and then we say, where did we go wrong? Now I'm telling you where we've gone wrong. We've neglected the community facilities within our communities that kept our children away from gangsterism.
Roscoe, I know you're the host. But I want to. You're also in council, so I just want to ask you a question. Why would anyone go to that extreme, unheard of, classifying a workshop, a portfolio committee meeting? Why would they go to that extreme to close it? Who stands to benefit? Because like you said now, it's the residence facility. So I want people to ask that questions for themselves. I want them to understand what we're sitting with. Because who benefits from a closed meeting?
I'm going to ask Suzette exactly that question. And we're going to talk about public participation because there's been a huge outcry about this. The change.org petition is like really, it's united people across the lines of race, culture, creed, sporting codes. Like everybody is against this thing. So why do you think the city are cloaking this thing in secrecy?
To carry out a decision that was made without the public participation. So the city has already decided. You know, within the city operates under certain legislations and laws. And for us to actually implement, we have to have bylaws, we have to have policies that guides us into how things are done. And so I need the public to understand, when you look at your constitution and the objective of a municipality, what is the municipality supposed to be doing? And there's 5 very specific objectives, one of which is public participation. public must be included in your decision making. So how do we do that? We do that in a few ways. There is an IDP, which means it's an integrated development plan that the city has got to put out to the public, which of course where the Velodrome was. And they've got to decide how and what must be done. What do they want to see? How do they want to see this implemented? And that is the plan that the city has now got to work on for 5 years. It's amended every year, obviously, in terms of what is happening in terms of budget, but that is what must be implemented. Now, when you've already made a decision about an asset, but you've not gone to the public, you tend to want to hide stuff. Now, what the public is not aware of, the city of Cape Town has no public participation policy or bylaw.
Explain that.
They've got a SOP, a standard operating procedure based on what, I'm not quite sure. But we've got a standard operating procedure as to what they think, how you should operate, but there's no bylaw that allowed community to have input. And they've got no policy to guide them as to how to engage people. I then, because I am aware of the fact that they have no bylaw and they have no policy, sent a motion in August of this year. And we asked that this motion be presented to the city at council so that council can send it to a portfolio. Well, it was first said that it wasn't in time. Then we resent it and said, well, we're quite happy, but we'll then have it at the December council. We got authority, we got approval for the December council. First the November council. We got approval for November council. A few days before council, we got a note to say that it is no longer going to go to council. The city manager decided that it must go to a portfolio where nobody is. So the public's not actually going to know that the city has no public participation. And it's got to be heard at the portfolio and not at council. So there's no council authority. So if the portfolio decides that they actually don't want to do it, there is actually no council authority to say that it must be heard. So the city is sliding along and everybody thinks that the city has got a public participation process, which they don't. And we can see that in the way that the bylaw is put out, the way policies are put out, and people to comment. Now I'm going to give you one very, very important example, which highlighted the dangerous ground that we are treading on as residents. If you are not part of the decision making of the city, things are happening to you without your permission. So the one thing that's very important in the city is our economic growth. It's very important. It is a lifeline. And if you look at the way investments is done, government and local government is the one large investor into communities. With services and maintenance and growth and projects, you have that going into communities. So your supply chain policy is one of the most important documents that must go into a community so that they can comment. I remember us having something called the Community Vendor Program to ensure that the SMEs in communities have the opportunity to be part of the supply chain process. So your supply chain policy must be the one policy that everybody that has an interest in business must comment on, which means in terms of your legislation, your Systems Act, and all of those wonderful acts and mechanisms and things. It says the councillor and sub-council, in our case it's a sub-council, must have meetings to inform. They're going to tell you that they do. But you're going to find that it is only from a specific political party. It is not known in general. And it's not known and widely spread. They're going to try and convince you. And a lot of people say, but it's advertised in the August and and they put it online and...
And that results in not much public participation, 4 or 5 comments if you're lucky.
So the comments came back to council. And this is where I felt so insulted. As a person representing the people, understand, it was an insult. That the council approved the amendments, but only 7 comments were received. Out of 5 million residents, 7 comments made a decision on a supply chain policy. So the question is, what are we hiding? Why can't we put it out to public participation? Why was my motion being hidden the same way that the velodrome is being hidden? You see, when we start opening up these stories, then the well-run doesn't look so well-run. Yeah. What we do have is a well-run media. That's what we have. But when you go into the communities, like we've been going into the communities, and they say, this is our sports field, and it looks like a dumping ground. The grass is so long, the thorns are out of control, the mole holes there, nobody can run on the place. But it's a city facility. And when you start talking about IDP and we need a facility, and they say, well, you got a sports field. Yes, but nobody can use it. And so for me, the public participation is a very, very important tool, because your people must govern what is happening. Currently, you have an IDP process where the city will come out, they tell you what they're busy doing, you comment, but your comments is not really taken into consideration because the decision's already made. You raised an issue about property. I just want to show you, just as an example.
I think let's get into the property issue.
This is about public participation. And I need to show you what the city considers the public to be. And this comes out of a business plan from property transactions. And they say, let me get you the stakeholders. So when they make a decision about property, partners and stakeholders in the strategic plan, because this is their strategic plan for property, which would include what Wesley was talking about. So who's the stakeholders? The internal stakeholders is council. They're the decision-making, political oversight and monitoring. City manager, also a decision-making and administrative oversight. City departments participate in information, knowledge management forums and corporate projects, end user representative for each department. Then it goes on and it says, who are the external stakeholders? Well, it says trade unions. And it says that's the industrial relations. And it says national, provincial and local government. Those are for information sharing, users of information. Then it says citizens of Cape Town. They are only recipients of service, not decision makers. So when you sit there and you understand that your role, as far as this city is concerned, not the Constitution, the Constitution says that you have got a different role. Your objective in terms of the Constitution is to ensure that the comments and the participation of the public in that decision making, according to the city, you must only receive services. It's here in black and white.
Not participate in the decision making.
You're not part of the decision making. So who has made the decision and why has this decision been made? Because in terms of the city's objectives and caring and all of these wonderful things that they put out in these very glossy papers, they say they're a caring city. They do this because they want to deliver services. And when we get rid of an asset, it must be to the benefit. You first got to determine whether or not that asset is required. So when you say to me that, they've made a decision, because clearly from the information that the mayor is putting out, he's decided to sell it. He's not spoken to anybody. He's spoken to himself and a few of his others, but he's not spoken to the public because your legislation, your act says you must ensure that the public doesn't have use of it. Now clearly the public is speaking, the public says we have use of it. The mayor is still saying, no, you don't. I've made a decision. It's going to be sold.
I do want to, our time is limited, and I do want to move on to property transactions because otherwise we will be here all day. But Jonathan?
Yeah, no, I was also on the public participation thing, and there's something that the residents are not seeing. Because they're working with the SOP, one of the things is that public participation forms part of sub-councils. But when you get to a sub-council and you look at public participation at that level, it's normally the recommendations are twofold. So one would be for noting, and the second one would be for comment. But what you pick up in sub-councils, even if you make a comment, and specifically at the sub-council level, politics is not always the highlight like we have in council. So you get councillors that's actually speaking to how they feel about certain things. And so obviously the governing party's people, or members, are speaking against what's there. And then when you get to the results, you don't see those comments. It's just gone. So the process that's put in place for public participation is not even followed, where sub-council's comments are never even registered. You can see it in every single thing that's coming, where the councillors has comment, because it will be on the minutes, but you will not find it on the actual document that's submitted before council. And council need to make a decision based on what's in front of them. They can't go and get additional information and add to it. It must be in front of you in order for you to make a decision. But I just want to close off with what Suzette has mentioned, or a question that is thrown in the air. Who's making the decision? Well, if you look at the systems of delegations that's been approved by council, of which Good has not supported, and we didn't support it because we could see what's going to happen in the future. If you look at this at that document within itself, all decisions are being made by the mayor and his maker. That's it. It doesn't matter where it goes. A portfolio can do whatever they want to. A sub-council can do whatever they want to. It's for recommendation to the mayor. That's only a recommendation.
And
when it gets to him, he makes a decision and then recommend his decision to council. And as you all know, when it gets to council, it comes in two forms, either noted or a decision that the mayor has made, of which his caucus must support. And then the item is just bulldozed right through the system. And the residents are suffering at the end of the day, because the residents does not have an opportunity or a platform to speak and to actually bring in how they feel about the matter. And that we need to change.
Can I just, before Wesley, I would like to close off with this.
Can I just say that I'm not ready to be the whip of my party, because I can't control my caucus. But yes, you may.
Sorry, Wesley. I do apologize.
You see, we are caring party.
I do.
We actually say sorry.
We do. And mean it. And mean it. I need people to understand this. How important the public's participation is in everything that council does. And I'm going to go back to 2021. 30% of the people came out to vote. That 30% is now making the decision for the 70% that decided that they don't feel like it, they've lost interest, they're upset, all of that. If you look at Mannenberg's by-election not so long ago, every ward has got something like between 80 to 100,000, I think it is, Jonathan?
Can be around about 80,000.
Between 80 and 100,000 residents per ward. And I'm talking Cape Flats wards, I'm not talking leafy suburbs, I'm talking where we live. About 4,000 people came out to vote.
Out of 80,000, 4,000 people dictated the direction that the ward is going to go in.
So when you do the public participation the way it is currently being done, someone is making a decision for you that you maybe don't have knowledge about it, you don't know what's happening in your area, nobody's really informing you. And so because of this, we have decided to start hosting public meetings. We started, as a caucus, we started with going to go and deal with people's problems firstly. And secondly, to start exposing, and I'm not going to give them my opinion, I'm taking the city's documents. I'm taking the city documents On my table at home, I've got 8,000 pages. 2023's budget and 2024's budget. I refer to it every time something happens. I'm taking the budgets with me so that you can see how money is hidden. The Velodrome just highlighted how money disappears off an approved budget with no comeback and, it's gone. It's just gone. And nobody can explain gone where to. That is extremely, extremely dangerous. And that's all I want to say to people. If you're not participating in the city, there are things that is happening to you without your participation. And I'm going to leave it at that.
I've only got 1,000 pages on my table at home, and it's a problem. It's becoming a problem. So I need to talk to somebody about how to deal with this stuff. Cats, partners, kids, just they can't navigate around all these council agendas. It's crazy. But we're going to wrap up. I'm going to give you maybe one more minute because we got to be out of here.
Roscoe, I just want to appeal to the people that's listening. Public participation is a must. That's the first step of democracy in a democratic state. The voice of the people must be heard. And if it's not happening in your area and you feel that your voice is not being heard, I appeal to the people to reach out to us so that we can elevate the argument, we can make your voice being heard, because that is the cornerstone of any democracy, is the voice of the people. The people shall govern. That's the emphasis. So reach out to us. I also just want to highlight one more thing. You asked something about neglect and all of that. And I want the residents listening to have a watchful eye on the facilities in the area, because it's a policy of the city not to maintain. There's currently a struggle, and it's relating to how they operated at Bellville. There's currently a struggle in Grassy Park down the road here in Klip Road, where they want to extend the graveyard and remove the Scouts facility. Now, if you ride past the Scouts facility, it looks like it hasn't been upkept. It's an eyesore. But the city hasn't invested in that facility for the past 10 years. They put people in there on a month-to-month contract. But what they don't say is that the sewage is not working, the water is not working. So how do you put a boxing club or Scouts that has children in a facility that doesn't have that basic amenities to operate? Then they argue, but nobody wants to use the facility. It's an eyesore. We need to, and that's how they push things through. So we need to be watchful. We need people, residents, to reach out to us all the time so that we can prevent these things from happening further. Thank you.
Cool. Suzette?
Roscoe, I don't know really how to address these things, because it's frustrating. It's frustrating to say the least. When you sit and you watch the neglect, the continuous neglect. I come from a governing position where wards had maintenance plans, where there was seasonal cutting, there was street sweeping, there was drain cleaning. Per ward, each ward had their budget. You got a ward allocation to do the little bits of things that was, to touch up. We've done away with social development. We've done away with community development. We are expecting our communities to grow like mushrooms in the dark, and we're expecting this wonderful outcome like, we don't understand poverty, because clearly the city does not understand poverty. You have a system that pushes them and abuses them and burdens them even more. And anybody that feels that I'm talking nonsense, I'm going to invite you. You are more than welcome to join me when I go and I sit with these people and listen to our seniors who are supposed to be retired. That 2,000 that they get. The one woman we saw this morning, the housing office is insisting of the 2,100 she gets a month, They're insisting that she pays 1,900. Now, there's no compassion.
It's a caring city, Suzette.
Well, on paper. On paper. So for me, I agree with what Wesley is saying. Reach out to us. We would like to go in. We'd like to go and have a look. Show you how you are able to, as a citizen, as a resident of this city, we will show you how to operate within your city. And that is my only task that I would like to achieve, is to show you how to operate as a resident of the city. I know people are comparing us to Joburg. And when you compare us to Joburg, we will shine. We will shine. But what are we comparing? The CBD and the Atlantic front? Because if you come onto the Cape Flats, it looks like Joburg. The sewers running, the rats are eating babies, children are getting shot, babies are falling into drains. It is horrific. So I don't know what part of Cape Town we are comparing to Johannesburg. And for those that are saying, you know, I get funny, or these funny political comments that people are making. Oh, because they are this and they are that. Come with me. I'll take you. If you don't want to go with me, I'll give you the address where you can go. Go and find out for yourself. Stop sitting on a TikTok or a Facebook and passing comment, but you have no idea where the addresses are. You've actually never been out into the communities. You're sitting in your wonderful, leafy suburb. Everything is going well. You pick up the phone, they're there within a few seconds. But I work where people have been without water for 2 years, where toilets don't work, where the toilet bowls have had holes in for years. And then all of our applications that we put in gets kept for when there's an election.
I'm going to have to leave it there. Jonathan, I've got 30 seconds for you because, you know, people have been eating our time.
Roscoe, yeah. They say everything starts with one. And to those that are watching and those that are listening, let me say this to the one that's watching and to the one that's listening. It starts with you. It starts with you saying, it's by time that we reclaim what belongs to us. It's by time that we reclaim what we deserve. And what we do deserve is services. It's by time that we go out and we hold the city accountable for the failing services, for the fact that they're wanting to take your facilities away. It's by time that you become part of the process. Don't allow the city of Cape Town to keep you out of process. You should be part of it. It's your constitutional right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you to super producer Nantel for producing the show. If you have any leads, any hints and tips, you can send it to us. We will keep you anonymous and confidential if you like that. Remember, councillors can ask the mayor a question which is legally compelled. The mayor is legally compelled to answer that. And if he doesn't, if he lies, he perjures himself. So thank you for joining us. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time inside council.